Welcome to another episode of Salt Air. I'm Tom Hatch, the creator of Salt, and with me we have one of our senior engineers, Bob Baker. Bob has been working in the forefront of developing our new security operations product, SaltStack for SecOps. And I'm really excited to have you here, Bob, because we talk a lot about the API behind the SecOps offering, but you're here to show us how it works.
Fantastic, Tom. And I'd like to just start out by pointing out that there is no secret SaltStack API. Everything that you see on the UI comes from the API that the customers can use. There's no magic under the covers. Everything's exposed and upfront.
Oh, that's excellent.
Okay. Right now we're looking at the UI. We're in the SecOps tab, and we have no policies defined. Just to kind of set things up. Often in security, we're always trying to seek vulnerabilities and close those vulnerabilities up. And right now I've got a couple of minions that are open to SSH as root, which we all know is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just to demonstrate that on minion 1, I'm going to log in as root, put in the password, and I'm in. No problem there. Now for master 1, I'm going to go to minion 2, and I've got the same access. No problem there. Okay, so in the old days, what we'd do is we'd send admins out to go check hundreds of nodes to see if this vulnerability existed. And then they'd have to patch it. They'd have to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was labor intensive and a pain. So with SecOps, we don't have to do that anymore. We can create a policy. I'm going over to Postman, save policy. The input is JSON, fairly simple. The output is JSON, very consumable. We're going to save a policy and include one benchmark and 2 checks. As you can see by the return, that was successful. We come back over here to our UI. We take a look, and sure enough, we've got a policy. Now, what checks did we pick? We picked ensure SSH root login is disabled and ensure SSH warning banner is configured. Now, if we do an assessment right now, all we have to do through the API is go to assessment. Once again, JSON input, JSON output. We send the assessment request. We can confirm that by looking at the UI, and sure enough, we've got an assessment running on 4 nodes right now. That'll just take a few seconds.
So one of the great things about these assessments, of course, is that we're using the built-in capabilities around configuration management, remote execution, and the event system inside of the underlying SALT system to be able to facilitate these checks. And that's one of the really great things about SaltStack for SecOps, is that not only are we able to go out and make those checks, we have the capability built into the platform to be able to make those remediations. So as that check comes back, because it's tied into Salt, we can actually change that system. And that's really the exciting bit. So I assume that our assessments come back by now?
They have, and we see that of our 4 minions, 2 are not compliant and 2 are not applicable, which makes sense because these particular checks apply to CentOS, and 2 of our minions are CentOS and 2 of them are Ubuntu.
Okay.
Okay, and as we demonstrated earlier, we can log in freely as root, and that's a bad thing. So let's go ahead, now that we've done an assessment and we know where we stand, let's go ahead and do a remediation. And I'll do that also through the API. And we're going to remediate across both the checks that we have defined. We go back to the UI and we can see that the remediation is now running.
Right, and the remediation is using the same pipeline, the same communication systems inside of SALT, but this time it's running to say, let's not just check if something is out of whack, let's make sure that things are lined up the way they should be, configured in a nice, secure way so that we can make sure that this particular hole that's gone overlooked is taken care of.
That's right. With some other products you've seen out there, you run the assessment, the best you're going to get is maybe some tickets in a ticketing system, which still means that an admin has to go out there, grab the ticket, go to the nodes, and fix them by hand.
Right.
No more with SecOps.
Right.
We do the remediation for you. Okay? We've done the remediation. That has been completed. And now we'll rerun our assessment through the API to see what our results are. Okay, that assessment has started. The new assessment is going to go out just like the first one and do a baseline check of all the different nodes for the checks that we have defined for this policy.
This is one of the other things that's really great about how the assessment system works. Under the hood, SALT is executing across all of these systems in parallel. The benefit here is that we can execute in parallel across not just the few systems that we're dealing with now, but also against tens of thousands of systems. And those assessments don't take significantly more time when we're dealing with very large numbers of systems, because the system itself is where we put the work, and we've built all of those pipelines all the way back up to our UI to make sure that these returns and the data it's all very, very fast. This is why we've been able to go into organizations and give them complete remediation across tens of thousands of systems for a myriad of different types of vulnerabilities. And those remediations are done in minutes, which saves literally months of effort for many of our customers and users, which is part of what makes this whole setup so darn exciting. So I assume that our final assessments come back?
It has, and as a result of our remediation, we see now that all of our checks and minions that were non-compliant are now compliant.
Well, Bob, thank you for coming in and showing us how the API works. One of the great things about the API in our SecOps offering is that, like all APIs, it allows a much more granular, more powerful connection into the backplane of the system. But we've only scratched the surface of what we're capable of doing using the SaltStack Enterprise API and using just the SecOps API. So hopefully we'll be able to do this again another time and go over in some more detail what we're capable of doing here. Now I want to thank you all for watching, and hopefully this answers some of your questions about APIs inside of our SaltStack Enterprise for SecOps offering. Thanks.